One of the most talked about things when it comes to Spider-Man 2 is Venom. There's been very little information on Venom besides the little that we've seen in reveal trailers, and there has been a mountain of theories on who will be Venom. And while some of them feel pretty close to the answer, I think people are missing the big picture, and I'm gonna break it down in this video. Because here's the thing, I already know who the main Venom host is going to be, and if you look at the trailers, there's a very clear pattern. Before we begin though, if you like the Spider-Man 2 content that you see here today, leave a like as well as subscribe for more. We plan to have a lot more Spider-Man 2 on the channel, and I'd love to have you guys join me in this journey. Before we can single out the host of Venom, let's get the obvious one out of the way, because when it comes to the first encounter of Venom, and yeah, I say first encounter, it seems obvious to me there will be multiple hosts. Now, the first host will be Peter Parker. Through pretty much all the trailers, there's always been a dark undertone that kind of surrounds him. In this scene, we see Peter in the dark with the black suit coming back to him. This scene is obviously a point in the game where Peter is too far gone and the people around him can't recognize him, and it's a metaphor for him giving in to the darkness that is from the Venom or symbiote suit. Also, we see the way Miles' body language is. To some extent, you can kind of tell that these guys are going to have to duke it out eventually. We see in many of the interaction that there's tons of tension between them. It's subtle at times, but it's definitely there. We can see this whenever Peter throws down the civilian in that one scene and Miles isn't really feeling it. And we see a lot of cases where he's kind of aggressive to Miles, and there's definitely going to be a point in the game where Miles has to stop Peter. Now, somewhere down the line, Peter is going to end up hurting MJ. I think that's going to be the major breakpoint. That's what's going to make him take off the suit. And I bet you're wondering how I came up with this conclusion. We can see in this scene that Peter is chasing MJ, and there's no logical reason for him to do so unless some event happened that pushes him to attack her, and Miles is going to have to fend him off and defend her. He's going to somehow hurt her, and he's going to realize the monster he could become, and he's going to rip the suit off, and that's how it's going to be. Now, that feels like the story to me, and it makes the most sense unless Insomniac is pulling one of their misdirections with Peter chasing MJ and it's actually something else actually chasing her and it's not Peter, but we'll have to see. Now, the final thing that really puts it all together for me when it comes to Peter becoming Venom to some extent, for at least briefly, is this line here.
You sure? It's got big teeth.
So do I.
Now, a lot of people like to downplay this line, but we see Peter is slowly shifting into Venom. His eyes looks like Venom, and when has Peter ever said something to the extent of his teeth? That is a very Venom focused feature. That's just not a cool line. I've seen so many people downplay this. There is no way that is just a cool line. That's very obvious foreshadowing. So yes, Peter is obviously going to be Venom, but briefly. The next host that everyone talks about is Kraven, and Kraven obviously will be the main antagonist at first, but this will shift to Venom afterwards. Now, the thing with this theory is we have seen so many things, in my opinion, that leads me to believe that this isn't a Kraven Venom. The main one is we see Venom attacking Kraven's aircraft. Now, this could be a separate Venom because I do feel like there's a good chance there may be two. But for me, Kraven isn't necessarily a dumb guy. He seems like he's a very smart guy. Even with the power of the Venom suit, I don't foresee him attacking his own units. Again, the Venom suit can influence him to do dumb things, but he understands the power that comes with having an army beside him. I don't see Kraven actively destroying his own aircrafts, even with the increased power. So that doesn't seem like it's a good idea. And plus, we already know the story that comes with the Kraven Last Hunt, and Insomniac is smart. They're not going to just give it to us that obviously, so there's no way it's going to be Kraven. Now, the next culprit and the very obvious one is Harry. And I have no doubt in my mind that Harry will come in contact with the symbiote, but not in the same way that maybe most people think. We actually seen in the past that Harry has been in contact with the symbiote, and in these scenes, he has not been able to bond with the symbiote. So for me personally, I already know that that's not going to be the angle. And if we look at all the different things that we see in the trailer, it's too obvious. It's almost as if Insomniac is spelling it out for us, and that by default makes it not the case. But this is where it gets obvious to me who is Venom. So we know Harry is in trouble, he is dying. We see that Connor and the symbiote is being used to basically help him. Now, in these two clips, this is what makes it a little bit obvious to me.
We're gonna heal the world.
We're going to heal the world.
So obviously Venom is saying this to Harry, right? But That's not Venom's character, not necessarily how Venom, in my opinion, thinks. When have you ever heard Venom say something like to the extent of healing the world together? And why would Venom even say this directly to Harry? This is very out of character in my opinion for Venom. But you want to know who it isn't out of character for? Norman Osborn. In this end footage, we can clearly see that the symbiote is not bonding with Harry while he's desperately trying to heal. I think it's reasonable to think that Norman has convinced himself to use the Venom to heal Harry, and this makes sense as to why Venom or Norman infused Venom would say,
"We're going to heal the world."
I know what you're thinking, but this kind of excludes Goblin from spawning into the universe, and honestly that's not the case because we have seen in many instances Harry become the new Goblin, and who's not to say that the battle with Peter and Miles doesn't end up killing Norman and then Harry wants revenge to some extent. That's a very easy Goblin angle, and even if Norman doesn't exactly die, worst case he's drunk with the power that he's gotten from the Venom suit and he wants to recreate the power, and boom, who does he want to attack? The Spider-Man. I think this is a perfect angle to not only do something new with Norman by making him Venom, but also this is a very easy setup to get Goblin in the picture. I think the final piece of evidence that really cement this is in this scene here where we see Norman reaching out to the symbiote and the symbiote coming towards Norman. It doesn't want to bond with Harry, but if Norman is in control of the symbiote, who's to say that he can't influence it for him to actually work, to actually heal Harry? And it would make perfect sense considering we've heard it many times.
We're gonna heal the world.
We're going to heal the world.
To me, when it comes to Venom, it's definitely going to be a host of many hosts, but ultimately, I'm sure it's going to end as Norman. But let me know down in the comments what you think, and in the next video, we'll talk about it. Thanks for watching, guys. Later.